can't wait for that for the night shift.
Of course you are, of course you are.
Welcome to another NDF Interview 2014. With me we have Rob Bryan with us, who's just literally come off the stage and done a fantastic clinic for us. Thank you and welcome to the NDF. This is your first time at the NDF?
It's my first time playing and my first time visiting.
Fantastic. How have you found it all?
Amazing, because I love vintage drums, like any drummer. Bit of an anorak when it comes to that. I own two 1960s Ludwig kits, which I love and use occasionally, when it's called for. And this, just to meet fellow-minded drummers and musicians in the place, is amazing. Like seeing all those kits, some of them, I know I'll never be able to own one, but just to look at them, because you'll never get the chance again. So the London Drum Show's got its thing, but this is something else. A little bit more character, I think, here.
Great. So do you think that's the best thing about the NDF, is the character of the actual show?
Yeah, exactly, because with the character of the instruments comes the character of the individuals that own the instruments, and some very interesting people. We've got great stories, some funny, you know, some tragic. Always like spending lots of money from the States to get this gear. But I think it's great. I think any industry needs something like this. If we were looking at MG motor cars, it'd be the same thing. You'd have your new ones at the London Drum Show, and then you have your old ones at this National Drum Fair. I think it's very important.
What's the best thing you've seen here over the weekend?
Equipment-wise, or just generally?
Generally, anything, yeah.
Generally, this is going to sound strange, but the joy I watch or witness when I see a guy walk up to a drum kit from a certain era, colour, he's like, you can see it's like the 12-year-old kid in a candy shop. Me and Phil have noticed it a lot, and it happened on my face yesterday when I saw that Buddy Rich poster that I want. I think that is amazing. But also, for me, looking at those old vintage Slingerlands, because I'm more of a Ludwig fan, but to see the Slingerlands and some of the colours that are out there are just beautiful. There's a sparkle one far left, the last one before the door, because we were thinking about bringing the van round to but that one, he said it was, it's not champagne, it's
it's
wine.
Orange flame.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
so
very rare actually.
Well, to see things like that, and the bizarre pedals, some of the pedals and just fittings that some guys are selling, all that, it's like, as I say, it's total anorak stuff, and I totally buy into it. You know?
Fantastic.
It's brilliant.
What do you reckon the NDF brings to its audience?
Well, it's a chance to see stuff that you would never... I mean, if you buy those books, which are also for sale, the Ludwig and the Gretsch and the Lady books, you only get a chance to sort of smell the book and go, oh, these are the drums. You can actually come and witness them and touch them and smell them and feel them. They're here in front of you, and I think that's amazing, because otherwise we haven't got a Smithsonian Musical Institute in England that I'm aware of type idea, where there's kits so you can go and have a look at a Ringo or a Buddy kit or whatever, and we need that. And shops, second hand, sometimes you get them, but a collector who knows what they want, they won't even go on the shop floor, they'll phone up and say, hey Joe Bloggs, this kit's in, I know you want it, you know, it's £2 better, come and get it. And the average punter will just hear the story that, oh, we had a Gretsch Rampage the other day, and when? And you never get to see it, so it's kind of like rocking horse manure, you know, hen's teeth and all that, you just never get to see them, so to actually come and witness that and see them, I think is just absolutely fantastic, because we're surrounded by the Premiers, the Gretches and the DWs and all that, which are fantastic, and they're the modern kit and they're going to last, blah, blah, blah. But it's nice to see where it all started. Some of the kits in there are from the 20s or something, the toms are so far apart, and those are ones that fascinated me, because I've never seen those. And when I tour in the States or wherever I go, I always try and find old drum shops. I sometimes bring some stuff back with me, but I can't now. That stopped.
Is there any suggestions you'd like to see at the fair?
Suggestions?
Yeah,
put me on again. No. Oh man, because I'm so new to it, I don't know. I think I'd have to answer that in a few days' time. I've taken it all in, because I know it's not loads and loads of rooms or loads and loads of floors. It's just one room, and it probably doesn't seem a lot to take in, but for me it is. I've been processing what's there. I haven't really thought what isn't there. I like the fact that hopefully you don't, not too many modern companies come along, maybe to bump it up, maybe financially, I don't know how that works. But I like the fact that you're trying to keep it to custom, vintage, and something different. I think the minute you kind of move somewhere else, it might change to something more like the London Drum Show or something. But off the bat, at the moment, it is pretty much perfect. The only thing I did say, and it's not really a drum-related thing, but some old vinyl would be nice, some drumming vinyl, maybe he's a record collector who's got some stuff. Maybe it's just to look at, and he's not selling it, but something like that, because I'm a vinyl collector, and I collect all old Buddy albums, well, all of them. Joe Jones, anything, wherever I am, again, it's like music shops, and if I'm never at the hotel, the band know it, I'm either in the pub, no, not in the pub. I'm either looking for drums, or I'm looking for vinyl.
Fantastic.
So that's kind of a off-the-wall thing, but something I'd like to see personally. But just keep it up. more old Ludwigs, please. I'll bring my credit card next time.
Fantastic. Okay, if you had to relive one gig or event, which would it be?
Oh, that's difficult. I couldn't name one. I'd have to reel a few off. I mean, Benicassim, 30 odd, 40 odd thousand people at 1 in the morning, and it was sweltering hot playing with Susie. Big screens at the side of the stage, the whole thing, that was amazing. Jules Holland was amazing. You know, any of those events that you sit at home thinking, one day I want to do that. My first interview in Rhythm was amazing. You know, as I say, I can't give you one, I'm afraid. All of them. And even my first drum lesson with my father, all those years ago, sounds kind of soppy but true. Even that, I look back, it was a scary day, but amazing experience. There's, you know, it's too many to mention. And coming here, of course, there's another one.
Yeah.
Because yesterday was, you know, I really loved playing for people here. It was.
That was great. They received it very well. It was fantastic clinics.
It was lovely, and to be able to do that Ringo tribute was
brilliant.
really nice.
What are you playing on at the moment?
I'm playing on a project with Goldfrapp's bass player called Charlie Jones, who's also ex-Robert Plant. He's got an album out of very filmic, is the only way I can describe it, music, very David Lynchian in its feel. We're recording a new album for that, and we're also gigging that. And also I'm about to go on tour with David Rhodes, who's presently on stage with Kate Bush in London for her 20-odd night stand. And we're going around Europe for 3.5 weeks, I think it is, doing that. And I'm also thinking of doing a few more, I'm talking to DW about more video clips and things like that, and drum channel performances. And also I've got some cymbals coming out soon through Bosphorus, which is kind of a bit of a secret, but not that much of a secret.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Ooh, sorry. So we're talking to Trojan Music distributor here, and we're going around doing some clinics and stuff for that. So I'm really excited about that, because that's something close to my heart, something I wanted to get right after being with them for 10 years. So yeah, and also studio stuff. There's some I can't talk about because I'm told I'm not allowed to say what it is.
Fine.
In case it doesn't happen,
Yeah,
you know, which is always really annoying.
Because it's sometimes the best thing you're doing.
And I want to say it, but I can't. Some of the things with DW I want to say, but I can't. So yeah, things are happening. You know, of course, check the website.
Great.
But those are the things that are coming up before Christmas.
And which website would that be?
www.robertbryan.co.uk. I could remember it.
Yeah. Who is your inspiration?
Again, kind of a double-barreled question. Watching Top of the Pops, Gary Newman, bizarrely enough, in 1979 was so different to everyone else. The synths, his look scared me, and something about it. And I wanted to play keyboards, but I bought the albums and played drums. I was 8. I didn't really know my dad played drums really properly. I was too young to know. And he said, "Look, I could teach you drums. I can't teach you piano." So he started me off. And then about a year after that, watching Frank Sinatra concert for the Americas. And the big band was Buddy's band, and Buddy come on at the half times, played with his band, West Side Story and a few other tunes, and I just jaw dropped, and that was it. You know, so between, I guess, and then I found Ringo, so I guess if I had to list it, it'd be my father, Buddy Rich, Ringo, and Gary Newman as a non-drummer, but he got me into music, he made me want to do something, you know, and from there, you name them. People always come to my place, they see the records and the CDs or DVDs and videos and say, "God, you're into Steve Gadd, Jim Redding, whatever." I mean, like all of us, but for other musicians, they think it's weird because you go through such a gamut of styles, and they don't quite understand that as a drummer, we like more than just rock or jazz, or we like to keep being diverse. And which is what we were talking about in the clinic. And yeah, I know you're very musical, you do lots of different things, and I think that's how it should be. And I try and not preach that, but I try and get that across when I talk to people, that it's really important to do that, because they make you better.
Not drums.
Exactly, and your drumming will come out through that. So if some chops want to come out, they'll come out musically instead of like, I'm going to throw all this in now because I can go, woo, which isn't, you know, the way. I know you, like me, don't like to think of drums or drumming. I think it needs to evolve. I'm glad there are guys out there that do it, because it means that we don't have to spend time going, our feet doing millions of 30-second minutes. It's good that people are doing that for a sport, but we're trying to do something different, which I think is extremely important.
Fantastic. Is there any advice you can give to anyone starting out or want to improve their playing?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a bulk standard thing, but find a teacher that you get on with. You know, sometimes some of the teachers out there aren't particularly very good players, meaning they don't go on tour, they haven't got a CV to show, but they're just really good at what they do. And obviously there's enough choices. You can go online now. Years ago, just make a phone call and just turn up, but now you can see what guys do, check them out. And I think if you get on with them personally as well, don't feel intimidated, and someone who's really amiable and personable, I think you can really get something out of it. So I'd say do that, and if you're not into that, maybe get a friend who plays drums as a bit of a mentor, you know, and get inspiration that way. And I think eventually, lecturing at, like I do as well, being in places, I always say to people, look, you'll get to a certain point, then you'll have to move forward. We all still have lessons, you know. I still want to go and see various people for hand control stuff. Yeah. And we were talking about just last night, I think, Buddy, and all these people go to various people for a checkup. Yeah. Like going to the dentist, like, is this okay, am I okay? Right, off I go again. Vinny is always talking about it, you know. And I think that's extremely important. And I think so, even if you're one of these guys that I don't need a lesson, I'll be fine, you're going to get to a point, you'll see a guy playing in a pub thinking, I want to get a bit further. And eventually, if you want it, you stumble into lessons anyway, and it works for you. But I would say that's really important, and to keep open ears and an open mind. Like we said, be diverse in your choice of music. Listen to a lot. Don't ever think jazz is old people's music. Don't think classical stuffy. Don't think pop's cheesy and easy. You know, try and keep really open-minded. We all, I mean, if my girlfriend was here, she'd say that's not quite true. I mean, we all say, oh, I don't like that, but really, I listen to everything and think there might be something in that cheesy Euro pop song. There could be something like a hi-hat part I could nick. Yeah. There's always something. Yeah. You know, not everything needs to be high art to be, you know, could be classic or something. Yeah, no. So I think that's really important. So all the people that come to see me for sort of private lessons, I do say that, to just be as open-minded, and I give them things to take away that could be so wide in scope that it just makes them go, why did you do that? And then hopefully 6 months later, they're all suddenly congeal into an idea. But
no, great advice. Sorry, changing a little bit. Is there any funny stories that you would like to share? And make them clean, because obviously we have a younger audience.
Oh man, I was talking to Ted Benham, who plays percussion and mallet cat in Susie's band with me, and just this morning, and he was saying, did you say anything at the clinic? I was like, no, because he says I should write a book with funny stories. There's something called Both Hands Up when we're on tour, and it's like they go around the room and say, is anyone done? And most people, but I'm like, both hands up. There's too many. I'm trying to think of a funny story.
A clean one?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, I have to go to the other website for those. Funny story. Oh, there's too many. I did one last weekend. I met Wayne Hussey for the first time. He used to play in a band called The Mission, and he did a very famous interview with James Whale where he was very drunk. And I didn't know, because I don't watch TV, that it's on the 50 worst TV moments ever. So I'm sat talking to him like this, and I said, I don't know if you remember, Wayne, but there was a terrible TV show and you were on it at some point, and he just was like, and I was like, is it a bad thing? He said, mate, it's the bane of my life. Yeah, I hate it. So there's little stories like that. Having a go at, not Lily Allen, who's that other sort of Cockney type singer that's out there? Kate Nash.
Okay, Nash, yeah.
We've done a few shows with them, and obviously she's very good at, and the band were great, the drummer's great in that band. But we just done Jules Holland, I think it was, and they were partying a bit and being a bit noisy and upsetting everyone in the bar, really. And she was dressed as a carrot, and I don't know why. So I was still talking to Ted, and I was like, flipping hell, you know, Kate Nash, what does she think she is? And of course he's going, and she stood right behind me. You know, and I just turned around and said, well, you're dressed as a carrot, what do you expect? So I'm really good at putting my foot in it, and that's why both hands go up. Because if something happens, it's usually me that does it. There's silly studio stories, there's tour bus stories. Yeah. I got left behind once. We come out of Coco, the last of the European tour, about 3 years ago, and of course the rule is, tell someone you're coming off the bus. Yeah. Everyone knows that. Yeah. But we've had a few glasses of water the night before. So I get on the bus and I decide to get out at Heston Services. I thought, this is quite reasonable. And I come back out, and where there was a huge tour bus, it's just air. And I get on the phone, and you know when you speak to someone on the phone, you can tell they're moving. Yeah. And Ted's like, you're not in your bunk, are you? I said, no, I'm at Heston Services. So the driver had to go all the way down to the next junction, all the way back into like central London, or Hammersmith, to turn around. Yeah. There's no other way to... No. So yeah, that's why it's always me. It's always me. If I'm going to say something silly, or do something silly, or...
It's always you.
It's always me. I'm the band fool. I'm the Ringo of the band.
That's not a bad thing to be, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, quite, yeah.
If you had a time machine, which part of musical history, era kind of thing, would you go back to?
Well, that's funny again, because I like rock and jazz, and I think I always say to my students that I always wish I could have been around the 50s and 60s to see the arrival of rock and roll. I'd love to see the drummer who first played the straight quaver from the Swan.
Yeah.
That's why I like those early Blue Note records, because the drummers are hearing there's a straight thing happening, but they still swing.
Yeah.
So they've got a really nice kind of push and pull in the time, which Ringo's got as well, actually. That's why all of his grooves swing. You know, even though they're not supposed to, they have a nice feel. So that would be a really fun time. And also to go back earlier than that, you know, Chick Webb, and see people like that back in the day, and to see how loud the bands were, how, because I was talking to someone about Joe Morello, who I love his playing, and they said they saw him in Bristol at the Colston Hall, and they said, don't give me all this that he was a quiet drummer. He was quite loud, because I always thought he was quite quiet. And it's just like, you hear these stories, and time is a sort of great healer, a great liar, and it changes stories. They said, I was behind the curtain. Oh, he was loud with Dave Brubeck. Not like, you know, aggressive, he had great technique, but he was forceful. But I was talking to somebody the other day, it's like, oh, I can't imagine Joe would play like that. So I'd like to go back and actually see for myself some of these drummers in situ. Yeah. Just be a little ghost and just see at the side of the stage. So I was lucky to see Buddy and met Louis a few times at clinics. So I've seen a few of those, but I was young. But I didn't see Art, Blakey and Elvin and all those. I'd like to have been around just to feel the force and to see how they play. Because you know what this is like. People say, do that Elvin thing as much as we can. You know, do that Ringer thing. And of course you do it with a bit of force. And they're like, you're a bit loud. So how can I play this Elvin type groove? Oh, well, it's not that loud on record. It's like, he is. Listen to that ride. It's feeding back, what I call feeding back. It's just washing out. Do you think he's just doing this? You know, so things like that. You know, working with a lot of, in the studios like I do, that's why I try and get into the Ringo thing. You know, so much. So I pick the sound out of the instrument. You know what you're looking for instantly. You can't play like them, and we can't pretend to, but we can play in that vibe. So sometimes when people, again, think about Ringo, I'll say to a student, play me, I'll play something like, oh, I want to hold your hand half this night, or whatever, and they'll play it, and they'll play it such a weak, you know, on top of the snare, and the hi-hat's just nicely rocking. Say, right, open the hats more, shaft of the stick, play it there, rim shot the snare, lay into it, and then they play it. Say, right, now that is what we're hearing. But 1963 records, bounce down, he's like in the background somewhere, but he was playing hard. We talked about it yesterday. He plays hard. So it's all that kind of thing. The sound is incredibly important.
I suppose there's certain fills and stuff that you can't physically do if you're just like tapping around, because there's no energy for them to do.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I find that whole thing really interesting. So when I talk to engineers and producers, when I'm making records with people, I really get into that, and they really enjoy that, because you're thinking of the sound. And I don't mind, for instance, Steve Osborne, when I work with him, and I think that Simple Minds thing, he liked to move my drums around in different orders and stuff, and Andy Partridge from XTC does the same. So well, can you play it like that? Let's see what happens. And it's like, oh my god, right, so I've got floor tom here now, and my 10 is sort of there, it's not there. It's not a great deal for us. We can just still think of a different paradiddle or a different way of getting around it. But he wants you to think differently about how you approach it. And I'm very much like, okay. And if he suddenly wants to bring a kit in that's like a little kiddie kit for a certain recording, it's like this, I'll do it. You know, I'm not a drummer that goes, I couldn't possibly do that, you know. I love doing that. I love messing with sound, detuning, putting stuff on drums. And I just think it's great. I think it's a natural evolution. Because we're doing it with electronics, with Roland, and I've got a great relationship with them, and that's all great. But I like the idea of putting little bits on a snare head. Oh, that sounds good if I do that. What does that do? Which is a whole other thing in clinics I like to talk about, but you know, we couldn't do it today, obviously. But it's a whole other thing, because guys don't think enough about sound on an acoustic kit. Because acoustic kits are still growing, aren't they? They're a young instrument, but they're still, you know...
It's one of the youngest instruments out there.
I think, absolutely. And I love the fact they're still trying to do acrylics and, you know, make things work. I'm still not a fan, but I think it's important to try different words, different materials, because electronics are too easy to go down. And there's people doing that 24/7. I think the kit, it starts from what we're looking at in that room to like my DW yesterday, like the modern kits we've got. There's extra places to go within those sounds. So sometimes I like to record with an old, and DW know this, but I like to record with like an old jazz festival white marine coil snare with the DW kit. It's just a nice trade-off. And sometimes I like to use my Speed King, which you spoke about the other day as well. You know, tape it up a little bit. There's something about the feel of it when I'm playing it. It just feels old. You know, maybe that's. Do you feel that way with an old kit? Because I know you've got some really nice stuff.
Yeah. So you were basically there. You want to play how that kit was meant to be played.
Absolutely.
Because that's how it is.
Yeah. And you just hit a 12-inch tom from a certain era that's tuned nicely. It's just like, oh, that's that Art Blakey sound, oh, that's that Jim Murray sound. And instantly you sort of play to that kit. And I think that's important. And even though Peter Erskine reckons that happens with the new jazz ranges, I've never tried them with DW. I still would find it hard mentally to get out of thinking my little 61 downbeat feels great.
Yeah.
My DW is awesome, but it's never going to feel quite the same as that. Yeah. You know, because the tom doesn't do that. But again, I love it. We had that conversation. Why put new parts on old kit? I love the fact that when I hit my 13-inch 68 Super Classic, she goes like that a little bit if I do it too hard. But I know if I get new parts, it'll be fine. But I don't want that. I love them, and it makes me play differently. They're a bit lighter.
Final question.
Yeah.
You can invite 4 guests to a dinner party, dead or alive.
Ooh.
Who would they be?
That's a great question. I think one's got to be Buddy Rich, because I'd like to get to the bottom of whether he was a nasty man or a nice man. I think he was both, like we all are. So Buddy would have to come along. I think I'd like John Lennon to be there, for a similar reason, and I respect them both, and admire them both. Do they have to be drummers, by the way?
No.
Anyone at all?
People.
People, just people. Jesus would be great.
Yeah?
Yeah, again, a character that, you know, who knows? None of us know, right? So it'd be really interesting to get him there and see how Buddy would get on with that. Yeah. And John. You've got some interesting things going on there.
They all think they're gods anyway, don't they?
There we go. And I think Peter Cook as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love... your list probably would go on to 100 people. Mine could easily go on to 100 people. But Peter Cook, because again, he was just a very intelligent man, extremely funny, extremely witty. You know, kind of a bit like John Lennon and Buddy, very sort of quick-witted and a bit harsh at times. But I kind of like that, because that, to me, generally is showing the soft side that they don't show. And I've had some stories of Buddy giving loads of money to the trumpeter to get a mortgage for his first house, and I've heard stories of him being absolutely horrid to people, and the same with John Lennon, and the same with Peter Cook. So I find Jesus, as we said, we don't know, hopefully he was a lovely man, but I think that's 4 kind of that jump to mind. But of course there's Hendrix in there, isn't there, and you know, like comedians and active footballers, but they're the 4 that come to mind at the moment, because I think that'd be really funny.
Fantastic. Well, Rob, it's been an absolute privilege having you here.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
It's been fantastic, and
asking me.
obviously we'll hopefully see you next time and all that.
Fantastic.
And we'll see you next time on another NDF interview.